just wanted to touch on the bad clients that we talked about. It's really hard to differentiate between a client that's simply recalcitrant and a client that just needs more education and more training and changing their habits. So if they're used to coming to see you and you say to them, look, I'd like you to see this client manager, if they say no to you, then they could just be a middle adopter, or a late adopter. Like I'm a middle adopter, don't change very quickly. It takes me a while to change. But those people are worth investing in. They're worth persisting with, and they're worth putting up and continually to train them and encourage that they should use the client manager. And some of them will take you 5 or 6 or 7 times. Others will take you 8 or 10 or 15 or 20 times. And the really, really late adopters might take you 30 times. But when they do change, right, then they're really, really good clients because they're very, very loyal, right? And then the ones that just won't change after 30 times of doing it, then they fall into the, more the recalcitrant, the ones that you need to get rid of. I just delegate them down to somebody else, all right? And unless they're really, really bad, a handful that are really, really bad, they're just really bad. And you really need to move those on. But in the main, there's not that many that were that bad, but most of them have eventually, dealt with somebody else or they've moved on. Just don't pay them attention, because the more attention you pay them, the more oxygen you give them, the more they play up. So what you do is, it's just like children. If your children are playing up in a particular area, just ignore that, and eventually they stop doing it. But if you give them more attention, more oxygen, they just continue to be bad. But then if you delegate it to somebody else, if you delegate it to an assistant client manager, what a great training ground that is. If they can get through dealing with a recalcitrant D-class client,
It's a good point to raise there, because I think this whole strategy is a journey rather than a task that you just implement. Because I look at your journey, Jamie, and, it would be nice to think that we could all say, okay, we're going to remove ourselves from the grinding work and pull back from the client interaction overnight. That would be great if we could do it, but it just doesn't happen that way.
It takes a couple of years, It really does take a couple of years, but you have to be persistent and you have to be consistent and follow, the methodology that we're talking about within the Wize network. But it will take the guys and the subscribers a couple of years, depending on the size of your practice, to achieve the outcomes and go on that Wize journey. Like one of our largest clients that I had since day one, he took 2 years. So every month I would bring up my, Ed called it quad A, or just say, quad A, quad B, or quad 1, quad 2. So I would bring up my quad list, and this particular client would always be in my quad A.
Right.
And he sat there for 2 years, their largest client. So finally I got him across to a client manager that he was happy with and comfortable with. And then I finally I withdrew from that client then, because literally visited that client twice a month for over 10 years, finance meeting, board meeting. And so that just gives an idea of the 1%ers. I'd have to say to everyone, it's probably 1% of the more difficult transition, but be very tactful with your client, use your interpersonal skills, be genuine. This is what I said. I said, I'm growing the business. I'm stepping back. I've now got managers because, Joe, I've known you for 5, 10 years, whatever it is. I'm sick of working 100 hours a week. So just find the right approach with each client, because every client, every person is a little bit different. Find the right approach. Always try and do it face to face.
I changed it a little bit. You got to sell it with what's in it for them.
I had that question.
Not what's in it for you. You got to say what's in it for them. Yeah. And what's in it for them is that they can get access to this client manager much quicker. They know 80% of the work anyway. They can always call me back in for the last 20%. So you've got to position it from a point of view of what's in it for them, not what's in it for me.
Ed, I used to often say, such and such is smarter than me, and this is why.
Exactly.
I'd always use that line. Joe is smarter than me because of this, and they're probably true.
But I think it's important to remember, if from the context of what you're talking about, Ed, is there is going to be this lagged process. We're not all the same. So some clients are going to take those extra touch points, and could take 1 year, could take 2 years as Jamie's outlined. But I think it's having the knowledge that that's the case, and that they don't need to be switched off as a client. They just need to be educated a little bit more and persisted with a little bit more.
Yeah.
Correct. And also sometimes, the client manager you chose may not be appropriate for that particular client. And you might have made a mistake there, so you should try somebody else. I mean, we've got the luxury because of our size to have a choice of different client managers to offer the clients. But, if you're very small, then you're not going to have that choice. But it is about leadership. So you need to lead, because if you let them lead you, you're not going to change, right? So if a client says to you, oh, no, I only want you to deal with me, Jamie, and then you go, oh, okay, well, you're letting them lead you and you're not showing the leadership. I used to always say to the clients, look, you and I, we do the architecture. We design where you're going to go. That's the builder. They'll come in and build the thing that we've designed. But most of the time you'll be dealing with the builder, and you only need to call the architect in every now and then. And the builder will call me in. So the client manager will call me in for the last 20%, and, we'll do the architectural kind of work, and then you're back to the client manager who will then implement it and build it, right? But most of the time you'll be dealing with the builder. Now, most of the businesses run teams as well. They've got their own staff. They understand that. And they understand that, they've got teams. When we come to the implementation, our team will work with their team to implement it. But that leaves, him and me to just do the architectural work. And then after a while, the client manager does all the architectural work anyway, but you just got to do it slowly. So, when you step back slowly from it, you're not saying to a client, I'm disappearing completely. And no, I'm not. I'm just making sure that, that you're getting really good service, because the team that I've set up, they can do that better than I can do it, right? So then it leaves me to just do the really high-end strategy work with you. And as I said, most of the C&D class clients end up doing the strategy work, client manager anyway. But in the early days, I'd still do the strategy work with the clients. I'd still go in there and do the PR work. So you've got to move yourself back to just strategy work and the PR work.
Yeah.